Hello all. In this particular tutorial, we will learn how to connect to SQL Server from Microsoft Power BI for desktop. Now, before you connect, you need certain information. And what is that? So you need to know the SQL Server instance name. It can be either in the machine name slash the instance name, or it can be the machine name comma the SQL Server instance port. You also need to know the database that you will be querying, and you need to have the username and password of the user who has got access to this particular database. Now, let me tell you something. To connect to SQL Server data source, no additional software is required. The Power BI has got integrated method to connect to the SQL Server. There is another method. If you don't want to use the integrated method, there is another method, and that is using the ODBC method. So to use the ODBC method, you will have to download the ODBC driver for SQL Server as well as latest Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable. Again, if you don't want to use the ODBC method, there is integrated method which does not need additional software. However, if you don't want to use the integrated method, then you can use the ODBC method, and this particular method needs two components. And in this particular lab, we will see both of the methods. Now, let me tell you something more, that these methods differ in a way that they access data. So you might want to prefer one or the other. So let's proceed with our lab. So we got the Power BI already installed. So let's launch the Power BI for desktop. And here you can see we got SQL Server. We can directly click on this, or we can say get data from other sources. So let's give it a few minutes. Once it launches, we can go to this database. Then we can click on this SQL Server database and we can say connect. Now we need two information, again the instance name and the port. So let's give the instance name and let's give the database, or we can give the instance name comma port, that is also fine, or we can give the instance name, so machine name comma instance name. So that's done. Click on OK. And then if you have the integrated connection, you can integrated authentication, you can use the current credentials. I don't have the integrated connection. So let's click on database. So this is the database user ID and password. So let's enter that. This particular user should have the access to AdventureWorks database. So let's click on connect and encryption support. So it does not have encryption support, which is fine. So click on OK. And we should be connected to the AdventureWorks. You can see Win19 SQL 22 INST1 AdventureWorks. So we have successfully connected to AdventureWorks. Now let's click on this employee. Let's click on this. This is one of the table which is present in that particular database. So let's click on load the data from employee table. So that data is getting loaded, and as you should be able to see, that particular data is here available now. Now, if I try to generate a graph, so here you can see basically we should be able to get the data here. Now, sometimes you may not be able to get this data. So if you have any problems, if you are not able to get this data, let's go to the file. Click on options and settings, click on options, and here under the security, if this particular use map and field map visuals is not enabled, then click on that OK, so that it is able to use this particular. So we have, as you can see, we have successfully connected to our SQL Server database, and we have loaded the data from employee table, and then we have created a chart with these particular three columns. Now again, you can do multiple things. If you wanted to do multiple things, you can do the graphs, etc, etc. So this is the integrated method. As I mentioned, there is another method. So let's close this and let's launch the Power BI for desktop, and let's try to do the ODBC method. So now let's click on get data from other sources, and here we will say ODBC. And here we'll choose this ODBC, and under this ODBC you can see we don't have any data source name. We don't have none. It says none. Let's cancel this. Now what we are going to do, we are going to go to ODBC 64-bit, and we got only one driver. This is the basic driver, so let's not use this particular driver. So let's what we are going to do, we are going to download the latest ODBC 17. You can choose ODBC 18 or ODBC 17. Let's go with ODBC 17. So let's go to the ODBC driver. So let's download the ODBC driver. So let's go to this. Again, you can always say download ODBC driver for SQL Server and it will prompt you. Again, 18 is the latest one. I'll stick with one version before 17 and I'll choose download Microsoft ODBC driver 17 for SQL Server 64-bit because this is a 64-bit machine. As I mentioned, I will be also installing the another component called Microsoft Visual C++ Redistributable. So let's download that component as well. Let's go to that. And again, this particular machine is 64-bit. So I'm going to click on 64-bit and it is a 24 MB software. So let's do that. Let's wait. And we have got both of the softwares downloaded. So let's install the Visual C++ Redistributable 2015 to 2022. I agree. Install. So let's give it a few seconds for that component to install and that's done. Now we are going to install the ODBC driver for SQL Server, which is the ODBC driver 17. Click on next, I accept, click on next, click on next and click on install. So that's done. Now let's go back, let's close this and let's launch the ODBC driver ODBC data sources, and now you can see we got the ODBC driver 17. We had only one, we got the another one. So now let's go to the system DSN, click on add, click on ODBC, select the driver, click on the ODBC driver 17, click on finish. Here we will give the instance name that we want to connect, Win19, and sorry, we can give here anything. So let's say we want to connect to SQL 22 inst1 and here we'll give the instance name. This is the name and this is the instance name that you want to connect. Click on next and here we will say with SQL Server authentication using this and we'll give the password of this user. Click on next, change the default database to and we will choose AdventureWorks 2022 and here we will click on next and we will say trust server certificate. It doesn't allow us to choose that. Let's click on finish and let's do the test data source and let's say test completed successfully. So let's click on OK, OK and OK. So now let's go back here and now let's go to get data and more and here we'll choose search for ODBC and click on ODBC and you can see SQL 22 inst1, the ODBC data source that we created automatically appeared. It was not there, it appeared here. And now if I click on OK, it will prompt for the username and password. So let's give SQL SA and let's give the password of that user and let's connect and we should be able to, and you can see the difference here that when we use this particular method, it actually listed out all of the databases and then we can choose whichever database or table we can choose the database and then the corresponding table. So let's choose person.address and load the data and then we will be able to actually do whatever we want to do with this particular data, such as drawing graphs or creating the charts. So these were two different methods of how we can connect to the SQL Server using either the integrated method or using the ODBC. So I've shown you both of the methods and you can choose one of this method based on your requirement. I hope you did like this particular tutorial. In this particular tutorial, we learned how to connect to SQL Server from Power BI and we learned it using two different methods. Again, thank you for watching. See you in next tutorial. If you do like the video, if you do like the content, do subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye. Thank you.